Don't get in the car. Marcus Rivera's voice cut through the underground garage like a gunshot, echoing off concrete walls, slick with rain, that had followed them down from the Manhattan streets above. Isabella Kingsley's manicured fingers froze on the black sedan's door handle. Her heart hammered against her ribs as she turned, designer heels clicking against wet pavement, to see the night janitor sprinting toward her with an expression that made her blood turn to ice water. The fluorescent lights overhead buzzed and flickered, casting harsh shadows that danced across his face. A face she'd grown to know over coffee and late-night conversations. A face that now looked absolutely terrified. "Marcus, what are you?" "Step away from the car, now!" His voice carried an authority that didn't belong to a man in a gray uniform pushing a cleaning cart. Behind him, that cart lay abandoned, industrial supplies scattered across the garage floor, like he'd dropped everything to reach her. Bella's breath came in short, visible puffs in the underground chill. Something in his tone, something that reminded her of her father's head of security, made her take 3 quick steps backward. The sedan's engine was still running, exhaust curling up into the stagnant air, and suddenly, that seemed wrong. Very wrong. "Who sent this car, Bella?" Marcus asked, and she noticed how his hands were trembling as he pulled out his phone. Not with fear, with adrenaline. Her throat felt tight. I called for a ride home. Same service I always use." But even as she said it, doubt crept in like fog. Had she called? The evening had been a blur of quarterly reports and investor calls that ran until nearly midnight. She'd been exhausted, gathered her things, headed for the elevator to the parking garage. And, "What time did you call?" Bella pressed her fingers against her temple. "I don't remember calling." If you're already hooked by this story, I'd love it if you could hit that like button and subscribe for more tales like this. Drop a comment below. What do you think Marcus is really hiding? Your support means the world and helps me bring these stories of justice and hope to people who need to hear them. Thank you for being here with me. Marcus's jaw tightened. In the artificial light, she could see a small scar above his left eyebrow she'd never noticed during their casual chats by the coffee machine. How many other things had she failed to notice about the man who cleaned her building every night? The sound of his thumb tapping rapidly on his phone screen seemed unnaturally loud. Who was a janitor calling at 12:47 a.m.? "This is Rivera. We have a problem. 3rd basement level. Spot B7. I need immediate." He caught her staring and turned slightly away, lowering his voice to a whisper that she couldn't quite make out over the hum of ventilation fans. Bella hugged her arms around herself, the expensive wool of her coat suddenly feeling paper thin. 3 months ago, Marcus Rivera had been just another invisible member of the building's night crew. She'd barely noticed him beyond polite nods when their paths crossed during her habitual late-night work sessions. The first real conversation had happened on a Thursday in August. She'd been standing by the ancient coffee machine on the 15th floor, staring at her reflection in its scratched metal surface and wondering why she worked 16-hour days to prove herself worthy of a trust fund she'd never wanted. "Excuse me, miss." His voice had been soft, respectful. "Machine's been acting up. Might want to try the one on 12. But she'd been bone-tired and stubborn. "I've got a system with this one. You just have to." She'd demonstrated her technique, hitting the side panel twice, pressing the brew button 3 times, waiting for the groan that meant it was actually working. When perfect coffee emerged, she'd felt absurdly proud. Impressive. Marcus had smiled, and she'd noticed he had kind eyes. Tired eyes, but kind. Been working on that machine for 6 months. Never thought of percussion maintenance? They'd both laughed, It was the first genuine laugh she'd had in weeks. After that, their paths seemed to cross more often. Always professional, always brief. But there was something about Marcus Rivera that made her curious. Maybe it was how he spoke, careful and articulate, like someone choosing his words deliberately. Maybe it was how he moved through the building with an awareness that seemed almost tactical. Or maybe it was how he talked about his daughter. Sophia's got a school project on marine biology, he'd mentioned one October evening when she'd found him restocking supplies near her office. Been checking out every book the library has on dolphins. Turns out 8-year-olds have very strong opinions about sonar. Bella had found herself smiling. My dad used to take me to the aquarium every Sunday when I was that age. I wanted to be a marine biologist until I was 12. What changed your mind? The question had caught her off guard. No one asked her about her childhood dreams. They only cared about her adult obligations. I realized dolphins were already perfect, she'd said. They didn't need me to improve their quarterly earnings. It was a flippant answer, but Marcus had looked at her with something like understanding. Sometimes the best thing you can do is appreciate what's already working. Now, watching him pace in the garage while speaking in urgent, clipped sentences to whoever was on the other end of that phone call, Bella wondered how much she'd actually understood about him at all. The sedan's driver hadn't emerged. The windows were too tinted to see inside, but she could feel eyes watching her. Her skin prickled with the sensation of being hunted. Marcus ended his call and approached her slowly, like someone trying not to spook a frightened animal. Bella, I need you to listen carefully. How many people knew you'd be working late tonight? She tried to focus, but her thoughts felt scattered. My assistant knew. The client I was on a call with. Security has logs of everyone who stays after hours. Why? Did you tell anyone you'd need a car home? No, I usually drive myself, but my car's in the shop and… The words died in her throat as she remembered. I mentioned it to Richard Vale this afternoon. He said the company could arrange something. Marcus's expression went very still. Richard Vale, our CFO. He was being helpful. When did you last see Mr. Vale leave the building? The question was so specific, so pointed, that Bella felt a chill that had nothing to do with the underground temperature. He said goodbye around 6. But Marcus, why are you asking? Because Richard Vale's key card was used to access this garage 12 minutes ago, and he supposedly left 6 hours ago. The information hit her like cold water. How do you know that? Marcus met her eyes, and she saw something there that made her stomach drop. Purpose. Authority. The kind of focused intensity she'd seen in her father's security team, in FBI agents who'd investigated threats against their family. Because I've been watching him, and I've been watching over you. The admission hung between them like smoke. Bella felt her world tilt sideways, everything she thought she knew rearranging itself into new, terrifying patterns. You've been… what? It's complicated. Marcus glanced toward the sedan, where the engine was still running, exhaust visible in the cold air. But right now, I need you to trust me. Trust you? I don't even know who you are. My name is Marcus Rivera. I'm 32 years old. I have a daughter named Sophia, who draws pictures of dolphins because her dad mentioned a beautiful, sad woman who wanted to study them. I've been working nights for 2 years to support her while building a case against a man who's been embezzling from your family's company. Bella's breath caught. You're not a janitor. I was a detective with NYPD, Financial Crimes Unit. I resigned after a case went wrong and my partner died because I trusted the wrong person. I took this job because someone I trust asked me to keep an eye on you while they built a federal case. The words hit her in waves, each revelation rewriting everything she thought she knew. The careful way he spoke, his precise knowledge of building security. The phone call just now, made with the confidence of someone accustomed to being obeyed. Federal case? Your CFO has been systematically looting Kingsley Corporation for 3 years, moving money through shell companies, falsifying reports, bribing auditors. He's stolen approximately $47 million, and he's getting desperate. Bella leaned against a concrete pillar, needing the support. That's impossible. Richard's been with the company since I was in college. He's like family. Family that knew you'd be working late tonight. Family that arranged for a car you didn't request. Marcus's voice gentled. Bella, I know this is hard to process, but we need to move. That driver has been sitting there for 20 minutes without getting out to announce himself. That's not normal protocol. As if summoned by his words, the sedan's rear window rolled down 3 inches. Bella couldn't see anyone inside, but she heard the distinct sound of a camera phone taking pictures. Her blood went cold. Oh God, we're leaving, now! Marcus was already moving, one hand reaching for her elbow, the other holding his phone. My car's on the 1st level. Your car? Even in her shock, part of her mind cataloged details. You don't take the subway? Not when I'm working protection detail. They moved toward the garage exit, her heels echoing too loudly on concrete. Behind them, she heard the sedan's door finally open. She didn't look back, but Marcus did, his hand tightening on her arm. Move faster, he said quietly. They reached the stairwell, and Marcus opened the heavy door with more force than necessary. The sound boomed through the garage, and Bella heard footsteps behind them. Measured, purposeful footsteps that matched their pace. Marcus? Her voice was barely a whisper. Someone's following us. I know. They took the stairs 2 at a time, her designer heels making her unsteady. Without thinking, Marcus steadied her, his hand warm and sure against her back. 2 more flights. When they reached the 1st parking level, Marcus led her to a dark blue Chevy Impala that looked nothing like a janitor's car and everything like an unmarked police vehicle. He had the engine running and the car in reverse before she'd even buckled her seatbelt. As they pulled out of the garage, Bella saw the sedan in the passenger mirror, following at a careful distance. They're still behind us. Not for long. Marcus made a series of quick turns that spoke of someone who knew Manhattan traffic patterns intimately. Within minutes, they'd lost their tail in the maze of late-night delivery trucks and empty buses. Bella found herself studying his profile in the dashboard light. Strong jaw, focused eyes, hands that moved over the steering wheel with practiced confidence. Nothing about him suggested a man who spent his nights emptying trash cans and mopping floors. The federal case, she said finally. How long has it been going on? 18 months. FBI Financial Crimes Task Force. I was brought in because of my previous experience with corporate fraud, and because I could blend into the building's night staff. You've been investigating my family's company for 18 months, and no one told us. Marcus's grip on the steering wheel tightened. The investigation goes deeper than just your company. Richard Vale's been working with a network of CFOs and compliance officers across multiple corporations. If we'd approached your father, there was too high a risk that someone would tip off the wrong person. So you decided to spy on us instead. I decided to make sure no one got hurt while justice got done. The words carried weight, conviction that made Bella study his face more closely. This was a man who'd given up a career, taken a job that must have felt like a demotion, all to see something through to the end. What case went wrong? She asked quietly. The one that made you leave the police? Marcus was quiet for several blocks. They were heading toward Queens, toward neighborhoods where the buildings got shorter and the streetlights cast longer shadows. I was investigating a commodities fraud, he said finally. Warehouse company that was selling grain futures on crops that didn't exist. My partner and I had been building the case for 8 months. We were close to making arrests. He paused at a red light, and in the silence, Bella could hear the faint sound of his phone receiving text messages. I trusted someone I shouldn't have, shared information with a federal prosecutor who turned out to be taking money from the people we were investigating. My partner went to make what we thought was a routine arrest, but they were waiting for him. Bella felt her chest tighten. What happened? Danny Restrepo was 28 years old. He had a wife and twin daughters. He'd been a cop for 6 years and never fired his weapon outside of a shooting range. Marcus's voice was steady, professional, but she could hear the pain underneath. The warehouse was rigged with explosives. Danny died instantly. The light turned green, but Marcus didn't move for several seconds. Behind them, a taxi honked impatiently. After that, I couldn't trust the system anymore. Couldn't trust that doing things the right way would keep good people safe. So I resigned. But you're still trying to get justice. I'm trying to make sure no one else dies, because corrupt people think they're untouchable. Bella looked out at the Queens streetscape rolling past. Bodegas and late-night diners, apartment buildings where families slept and dreamed of better lives. This was Marcus's world, she realized. Not the marble lobbies and executive boardrooms where she spent her days, but the real city where real people worked and struggled and protected each other. Where are we going? Safe house. FBI maintains a few locations for situations like this. Situations like this? When witnesses need protection. The word witness hit her like a physical blow. I'm a witness? To what? To whatever Richard Vale was planning to do tonight. Marcus pulled into the driveway of a small house in Woodside, Queens. It looked perfectly ordinary. Vinyl siding, small front yard, newspapers scattered on the porch. But Bella noticed the security cameras disguised as outdoor lighting, the reinforced front door, the way Marcus scanned the street before turning off the engine. Stay close to me, he said, and something in his tone reminded her that just an hour ago, she'd been in real danger. Might still be in real danger. The house was furnished like a budget hotel, functional but impersonal. Marcus guided her to a kitchen where coffee was already brewing, and someone had left sandwiches wrapped in plastic. Expecting us? Bella asked. FBI's been monitoring Richard Vale's communications. When his keycard accessed your building's garage tonight, they knew something was happening. Bella sank into a chair at the small dining table. The events of the evening felt surreal, like something that happened to other people. People in movies. Not to trust fund daughters who worked too hard and drank too much coffee. Marcus. She looked up at him. Really looked at him. He'd loosened his gray uniform shirt, and she could see the edge of what looked like tactical gear underneath. If you're not really a janitor, why do you know so much about that coffee machine? For the first time since they'd left the garage, Marcus smiled. It transformed his entire face, making him look younger and more vulnerable. Because I really did spend 6 months trying to fix it. Figured if I was going to maintain cover, I might as well be good at the job. Despite everything, Bella found herself smiling back. Percussion maintenance. Your technique was inspired. They looked at each other across the small table, and Bella felt something shift between them. For months, she'd been attracted to a kind janitor who listened to her talk about work stress and family pressure. Now she was looking at a man who'd given up his career to protect people like her from people like Richard Vale. The attraction was still there, but it was deeper now, more complicated, more dangerous. The things you told me about Sophia, she said. Were any of them real? All of them. Marcus's expression softened. She really is obsessed with dolphins. She really does draw pictures that I put on our refrigerator. And she really did ask me about the sad lady who wanted to study marine biology. You told your daughter about me? I told her about a woman who seemed lonely, who worked too hard, who lit up when she talked about things she used to love. Bella felt heat rise in her cheeks. I'm not lonely. No? She started to protest, then stopped. When was the last time she'd had dinner with someone who wasn't a client or colleague? When was the last time she'd told someone about her dreams instead of her quarterly targets? Maybe a little lonely, she admitted. Marcus's phone buzzed with another text message. He glanced at it, and his expression grew serious again. They found the sedan, he said. Bomb squad's checking it now. The word bomb made Bella's vision blur at the edges. There was actually a bomb? Improvised explosive device. Small, but enough to... He didn't finish the sentence, but he didn't need to. Bella pressed her hands flat against the table, trying to steady herself. Richard Vale wanted to kill me. Richard Vale wanted to eliminate a problem. You've been asking questions about discrepancies in financial reports, getting too close to information that could expose him. I was just doing my job. You were threatening a $47 million fraud scheme. The numbers were incomprehensible. She thought about Richard's helpful smile when he'd offered to arrange transportation for her. The friendly wave he'd given her when he'd supposedly left the building at 6 p.m. How many people are involved? We're still mapping the network, but it's extensive. Corporate officers, bank executives, federal regulators, people who've been systematically looting pension funds and corporate assets for years. Bella thought about her father's employees, people who'd worked for Kingsley Corporation their entire careers, counting on retirement benefits that might not exist. Families who trusted that their savings were secure. When does this end? She asked. Tomorrow morning, federal agents will execute simultaneous arrests in 12 cities. Richard Vale and his network will be charged with conspiracy, fraud, money laundering, and attempted murder. And me? Marcus met her eyes. You go back to your life. Testify when the time comes. Try to forget this happened. Try to forget you. It wasn't a question. They both knew that whatever had been developing between them over months of late-night conversations and shared coffee was complicated by the truth of who he really was, what he'd really been doing. Bella. Marcus leaned forward, and she saw something vulnerable in his expression. I need you to know that none of this was fake. The conversations, the way I felt when I saw you working alone on holidays, when you talked about Sophia like she was your own daughter, that was real. But you were still lying to me. I was protecting you by lying to me. Marcus ran his hands through his hair, and she saw how tired he looked, how much this double life had cost him. Yes, he said simply, by lying to you. Bella stood up from the table, pacing to the kitchen window. Outside, Queens stretched toward the East River, a maze of working-class neighborhoods where people like Marcus lived and worked and raised children and tried to make the world a little bit safer. What happens to Sophia during all this? The question seemed to surprise him. She's staying with my sister in Brooklyn. Safe. Does she know what you really do? She thinks I'm a janitor who helps catch bad guys sometimes. Smart kid. Too smart. She asked me last week why I always seem sad when I come home from work. Bella turned from the window. What did you tell her? That sometimes grown-ups have to do hard things to keep people safe. And? Marcus smiled, but it was tinged with sadness. She drew me a picture of a superhero janitor, cape and mop. Despite everything, Bella laughed. It started as a small chuckle, but grew until she was laughing so hard her eyes watered. Marcus joined her, and for a moment, the kitchen felt warm and normal and safe. When the laughter faded, they looked at each other with something like recognition. Two people who'd found something real in the middle of deception and danger. "Marcus," Bella took a step toward him. "When this is over, when Richard Vale is arrested and the case is closed, what happens to us?" "I don't know," he said honestly. "I'll go back to being a cop, probably. You'll go back to running your company. We're from different worlds." "Are we?" She was close enough now to see the flecks of gold in his brown eyes, to smell the faint scent of his aftershave under the cleaning supplies. "You're Isabella Kingsley. Your family's worth more than most small countries. And you're Marcus Rivera. You gave up everything to protect people you'd never met from criminals who thought they were untouchable." Marcus cupped her face gently, his thumb brushing across her cheekbone. "Bella, you don't understand what you're saying. I understand that I've never felt as safe as I did when you told me not to get in that car. I understand that you've been protecting me for months, and I never even knew I needed protecting. You deserve someone who can give you the life you're used to. I deserve someone who sees me as more than a trust fund with legs." She stood on her tiptoes and kissed him, soft and tentative at first, then deeper when he didn't pull away. Marcus tasted like coffee and possibility, like safety and danger all wrapped up together. When they broke apart, he rested his forehead against hers. "This is complicated," he whispered. "The best things usually are." Marcus's phone rang, shrill and urgent in the quiet kitchen. He answered it without stepping away from her. "Rivera." He listened for a moment, his expression growing tense. "How many? When? Copy that." He ended the call and looked at Bella with something like regret. "They moved up the timeline. Arrests are happening now. I need to go." "Go where?" "Back to Manhattan. Richard Vale knows his network is compromised, and he's making one last play." Bella felt cold dread settle in her stomach. "What kind of play?" "The kind that puts you in danger until he's behind bars." Marcus was already moving, checking his weapon, grabbing a tactical vest from a closet that definitely hadn't contained cleaning supplies. "I'm coming with you," Bella said. "Absolutely not. It's my family's company, my employees that he's been stealing from. I'm not hiding in Queens while you risk your life to clean up a mess that's partially mine." Marcus stopped, studying her face. What he saw there must have convinced him she wasn't going to back down. "If you come, you do exactly what I tell you. No arguments, no heroics. Deal?" "And Bella," Marcus checked his watch, "whatever happens tonight, I need you to know that falling for you was the most honest thing I've done in 2 years." Before she could respond, he was heading for the door, and she was following, her heart hammering against her ribs as they stepped back out into the night. The city looked different now that she knew how much danger she'd been in, how many people had been working behind the scenes to keep her safe. Every shadow could hide a threat, every passing car could be surveillance. But walking beside Marcus Rivera, detective, protector, the man who'd seen through her loneliness to something worth saving, Bella felt stronger than she had in months. Whatever Richard Vale had planned, whatever final desperate gambit he was making, they would face it together. The real story was just beginning. The drive back to Manhattan felt like descending into a war zone. Marcus's radio crackled with updates every few minutes. Arrests in progress in Chicago, Miami, Houston. The network Richard Vale had built was collapsing in real time, and desperate people were making increasingly dangerous decisions. "Unit 7 to base. Suspect fleeing on foot toward the harbor. In pursuit." "Base to all units. Be advised Vale's personal security team has gone dark. Assume they're operating outside legal parameters." Bella gripped the door handle as Marcus took a sharp turn onto the Queensboro Bridge. Below them, the East River glittered with reflected city lights, deceptively beautiful in the darkness. "Marcus," she had to raise her voice over another radio update. "What did they mean about his security team going dark?" "Richard Vale hired private contractors 6 months ago. Former military, expensive, not bound by the same legal constraints as corporate security." Marcus's knuckles were white on the steering wheel. "FBI lost contact with their surveillance team 20 minutes ago." The implications hit her like ice water. "You think they're coming after me? I think Richard Vale has 47 million reasons to make sure you never testify, and he's running out of legal options." Marcus's phone rang. He answered via Bluetooth, keeping his hands free to drive. "Rivera." "Marcus, it's Agent Chen. We have a problem." Even through the car speakers, Bella could hear the tension in the woman's voice. "Talk to me." Vale's not at his apartment, not at his office, not at any of his known associates. But 30 minutes ago, someone used his corporate credit card to rent a van in Astoria. Marcus's jaw clenched. "Astoria's 10 minutes from my sister's house. We're sending units there now, but Marcus..." The line went dead. Marcus was already swerving across 3 lanes of traffic, heading for the nearest exit. The speedometer climbed past 80 as they raced through Queens neighborhoods that blurred together in streaks of neon and shadow. Bella's chest felt tight with a fear that had nothing to do with their dangerous speed. "Sophia. She's safe. Carmen would never let anyone near her." But even as he said it, Marcus was calling his sister. The phone rang once, twice, 3 times. On the 4th ring, a man's voice answered. "Hello, Marcus." The voice was cultured, calm, and completely unfamiliar. Marcus nearly lost control of the car. "Where is she?" "Your daughter is perfectly safe. For now. She's actually quite charming. She's been showing me her dolphin drawings." Bella watched Marcus's face transform into something deadly. This was what he'd looked like as a detective, she realized. This was the man who'd built cases against killers and fraudsters. "If you hurt her, I won't hurt her, Marcus. Not if you give me what I need." "What do you want?" "The files. All of them. Every document, every recording, every piece of evidence your FBI friends have collected." Marcus pulled into his sister's neighborhood, a quiet residential area of small houses and tree-lined streets. Police cars were already there, their red and blue lights painting the darkness in urgent colors. "You know I can't do that." "Can't or won't?" Richard Vale's voice carried a note of amusement. "Let me help you reconsider." There was a rustling sound, then a small, frightened voice came through the speaker. "Daddy!" Marcus made a sound like he'd been shot. Bella reached over and grabbed his hand, feeling his whole body shake. "I'm here, baby. Are you okay?" "I want to come home. The man says I have to stay here until you help him with work stuff. Just be brave for me, okay? Remember what we practiced. If someone scares me, I should think about dolphin swimming. And I should remember that my daddy always finds me." "That's right, baby. Daddy always finds you." Vale's voice returned to the line. "Touching. You have 1 hour, Marcus. The files, or your daughter disappears forever. And just so we're clear about the stakes," the sound that came through the speakers next made both Marcus and Bella flinch. It was the distinctive click of a gun being cocked. "1 hour," Vale repeated. Then the line went dead. Marcus sat in the driver's seat, his hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly, Bella could see his knuckles bleeding where they'd split. His breathing was ragged, and she could feel rage radiating from him like heat. "Marcus." Her voice was gentle, careful. "We'll get her back. He has my daughter." The words came out broken, raw. "He has Sophia." Bella unbuckled her seatbelt and turned to face him fully. "Look at me." When he didn't respond, She cupped his face in her hands, forcing him to meet her eyes. "We will get her back, but not if you fall apart right now. Sophia needs the detective, not the scared father." Marcus closed his eyes, and she watched him pull himself together through sheer force of will. When he opened them again, the cold professionalism was back. "He wants the files. If I give them to him, he'll kill her anyway to eliminate witnesses. So we don't give him the files. Bella, he has my daughter. And we're going to get her back, but not by letting a murderer walk free." Marcus stared at her, and she saw the moment when he realized she had a plan. "Tell me." Bella pulled out her phone, her mind already racing with possibilities. "Richard Vale's power comes from operating in shadows, right? From keeping his crimes hidden while he manipulates things behind the scenes." "Right. So we drag him into the light." She was already opening social media apps, her fingers flying across the screen with the speed of someone who'd built a career on viral marketing campaigns. "What are you doing?" Something he'll never expect. Bella's eyes were bright with purpose. "I'm going to make Richard Vale the most famous man in America." Within minutes, she'd crafted the first post. A selfie of her and Marcus in the car, with flashing police lights visible in the background, and text that made Marcus's blood pressure spike. "My name is Isabella Kingsley. 30 minutes ago, my family's CFO tried to murder me with a car bomb. Now, he's kidnapped an 8-year-old girl named Sophia Rivera. This is her father, Detective Marcus Rivera, who saved my life tonight. Richard Vale has stolen $7 million from pension funds and is about to kill a child to cover it up. Share this. Make it go viral. Let's find Sophia together." Find Sophia. Justice for Sophia. "Bella, what are you—" "Trust me." She hit publish simultaneously across Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and Facebook. Richard Vale's plan only works if this stays secret. But what happens when 10 million people are looking for him? The post started getting likes and shares immediately. Bella's followers, a mix of business contacts, influencers, and genuine fans who'd followed her journey as a reluctant heiress, began amplifying the message. But Bella wasn't done. She started a live stream, pointing the camera at Marcus as he coordinated with the FBI agents who'd arrived at his sister's house. "This is what a real hero looks like," she said to her growing audience. "Detective Marcus Rivera gave up his career to protect people like me from criminals like Richard Vale. He's been working undercover for 2 years, and tonight Richard Vale kidnapped his 8-year-old daughter to stop him from testifying." The viewer count climbed rapidly. Hundreds, then thousands, then tens of thousands. Bella turned the camera on herself. "Richard Vale thinks he can commit murder and fraud because he believes the system protects people like him. But he forgot something important. We outnumber them." Comments flooded in, sharing everywhere. "This is insane. We see you, Sophia. Justice for working families. Rich people think they own everything, including children." Within 30 minutes, Find Sophia was trending nationally. News outlets picked up the story. Local TV stations dispatched helicopters. The pressure was building so fast that Bella could almost feel Richard Vale's world crumbling in real time. Marcus finished briefing the FBI team and returned to the car, where Bella was fielding calls from CNN, Fox News, and the Washington Post. "Bella, what have you done?" "I've made it impossible for Richard Vale to disappear." She showed him the metrics on her phone. 12 million impressions in the last hour. Every news station in New York is covering this. There are volunteers organizing search parties in 5 boroughs. Marcus stared at the screen, watching his daughter's picture spread across the internet, alongside photos of Richard Vale that someone had pulled from Kingsley Corporation's website. He's not going to like the attention. That's the point. He wanted to operate in shadows? Now he's under the brightest spotlight in America. As if summoned by her words, Marcus's phone rang. Richard Vale's number. Marcus answered on speaker. "Vale. You brilliant bastard." Richard's voice was tight with fury. "Did you really think social media would save your daughter?" "I thought justice might." "Justice?" Richard laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You want to talk about justice? I've worked for the Kingsley family for 15 years. I've made them billions in profits, streamlined their operations, increased their market share. And what do I have to show for it? A salary that's a rounding error on their quarterly taxes." "So you decided to steal from pension funds?" "I decided to take what I'd earned. Those pension funds were poorly managed anyway. I invested that money better than any government bureaucrat ever could." Bella grabbed the phone. "By invested, you mean spent on yourself, while retirees lost their life savings. Isabella, I wondered when you'd find your voice." Richard's tone turned patronizing. "Your father's little princess, playing at running a business, thinking you understand how the real world works. I understand that you tried to murder me tonight. I tried to solve a problem. You were getting too close to information that would have destroyed legitimate business operations." "Legitimate?" Bella's voice rose. "You stole money from teachers and firefighters and nurses. I liberated money from an inefficient system and put it to better use." Marcus took the phone back. "Where's Sophia?" "Safe, for now. But Marcus, you need to understand something. This social media circus changes nothing. I still have your daughter, and I still have resources you can't imagine. What do you want?" "I want the files destroyed. I want the FBI to receive a carefully crafted statement explaining that their investigation was based on fabricated evidence. And I want you to disappear. Permanently." "And if I refuse?" "Then Sofia Rivera becomes another tragic statistic. An 8-year-old girl who disappeared because her father cared more about playing hero than protecting his own family." The line went dead. Marcus sat in silence for several seconds, his hands clenched into fists. When he spoke, his voice was deadly quiet. "He's not going to negotiate. He's planning to kill her no matter what I do." "Then we find her first." Bella's phone was buzzing constantly with tips, leads, and messages of support. She scrolled through them quickly, looking for anything useful. "Marcus, look at this." She showed him a message from a user called @NYCCU Traffic Cam Watcher. "Saw your stream. I track traffic cams as a hobby. Spotted the van you're looking for, heading toward the old Kingsley warehouse in Long Island City, 20 minutes ago. Sending coordinates." Marcus was already starting the engine. "That warehouse has been abandoned for 5 years. Perfect place to hide someone." As they drove through Queens toward the industrial waterfront, Bella continued managing her social media campaign. More tips poured in. Sightings of the van, reports of unusual activity at various locations, offers of help from everyone from retired cops to concerned parents. "This is incredible," she murmured, watching the real-time crowdsourcing of a rescue operation. "There are people I've never met organizing search grids, calling in tips to police, sharing Sophia's photo with everyone they know." "Your father's going to hate the publicity." Bella looked up from her phone. "My father's going to have to deal with the fact that his daughter isn't helpless." They reached the warehouse district as the first hints of dawn began to lighten the eastern sky. The area was industrial, desolate, perfect for someone who wanted privacy for terrible things. Marcus parked 3 blocks away from the coordinates they'd received. FBI vehicles were already in position, but they were maintaining distance. Too much police presence might spook Vale into doing something irreversible. "I'm going in," Marcus said, checking his weapon. "Not alone." "Bella, Not alone, she repeated firmly. We're in this together. Marcus looked at her. Really looked at her. Isabella Kingsley, who'd grown up in Manhattan penthouses and European boarding schools, who wore $1,000 shoes and drove cars worth more than most people's houses. But also the woman who'd just marshaled the power of social media to save his daughter, who'd turned what should have been her worst nightmare into a tool for justice. Stay behind me. Do exactly what I say. Deal. They approached the warehouse on foot, moving through shadows cast by shipping containers and industrial equipment. Bella's heart was hammering so hard, she was sure everyone for miles could hear it, but she forced herself to focus. The warehouse was exactly what she'd expected, a massive concrete structure with broken windows and graffiti-covered walls. But there was a van parked behind it, and lights were visible through a ground-floor window. Marcus held up his hand, signaling her to stop. In the distance, she could hear police sirens, but they seemed to be holding back. Thermal imaging shows 3 people inside. Agent Chen's voice crackled through Marcus's earpiece. Adult male, adult female, and a child. Adult female? Probably your sister Carmen. Vele must have taken her too when he grabbed Sophia. Marcus's expression darkened further. Now it wasn't just his daughter at risk, but his sister, the woman who'd raised Sophia when he was working impossible hours, who'd sacrificed her own social life to help him be a single father. I'm done waiting, he said. But before he could move, Bella grabbed his arm. Wait, I have an idea. She pulled out her phone and started another live stream, this time pointing the camera at the warehouse. We found her, she said to her audience. Sophia Rivera is in this building. Richard Vale, CFO of Kingsley Corporation, has kidnapped an 8-year-old girl and is holding her in an abandoned warehouse. The viewer count exploded. Hundreds of thousands of people watching in real time as the drama unfolded. Marcus, look at the comments. People were sending the stream to news outlets, to police departments, to FBI field offices. Someone had identified the exact address and was directing authorities to their location. Others were sharing the feed with journalists and politicians. Richard Vale, Bella said directly into the camera. You're being watched by 500,000 people right now. Every news station in the country is getting ready to broadcast this. You have nowhere to hide. As if he'd heard her, lights began moving inside the warehouse. Figures appeared at the windows. Vale, she was sure, trying to assess the situation outside. Marcus's earpiece crackled. All units, be advised we have media helicopters en route. This is about to become very public. Good, Marcus said grimly. He moved toward the warehouse entrance, Bella staying close behind him. Her phone was still live streaming, providing a real-time record of everything that was happening. The front door was chained shut, but Marcus had come prepared. Bolt cutters made quick work of the chains, and they slipped inside. The warehouse was cavernous, filled with shadows and echoes, but Bella could hear voices coming from an office area at the far end. A man's voice, angry and desperate, and a child crying. Sophia. Marcus moved through the warehouse like a ghost, his police training evident in every step. Bella followed, trying to keep her breathing steady, her phone steady, the live stream running. They reached the office area, and through a dirty window, Bella could see inside. Richard Vale stood with his back to them, a gun in his hand, shouting at someone out of view. Carmen sat tied to a chair, blood running from her nose. And in the corner, Sophia was curled into a ball, crying quietly. Marcus signaled for Bella to stay back, then positioned himself outside the office door. "Richard," he called out. "It's over. The FBI has the building surrounded. Your network's been arrested. There's nowhere to go. Marcus! Vale's voice was manic, unhinged. Perfect timing. Come in here, and let's discuss terms. Let Sophia and Carmen go. You want to negotiate, you negotiate with me alone. Oh, but Marcus, that's where you're wrong. See, I've been watching your girlfriend's little social media stunt. Very impressive. Half the country is watching this right now, aren't they? Vale appeared at the office window, gun pointed at Sophia's small form. Which means half the country is about to watch what happens to little girls whose fathers care more about justice than family. Bella felt ice water run through her veins. Vale was past rational thought, past caring about consequences. He was going to kill Sophia on live stream just to hurt Marcus. But she also realized something else. Vale was so focused on Marcus, so consumed with rage and desperation, that he'd forgotten about her. She started moving, circling around to the back of the office area, while Vale continued shouting threats at Marcus. You destroyed my life, Vale was screaming. 15 years of service, 15 years of making the Kingsley family richer, and this is how they repay me? By sending some washed-up cop to spy on me? You destroyed your own life when you decided to steal from working families. Working families? Vale laughed wildly. You mean the same working families that would never give someone like you a second look? The same working families that see you as hired help? You're not a hero, Marcus. You're a janitor with delusions of grandeur. Bella reached the back of the office. Through another window, she could see Vale holding the gun on Sophia, while Marcus continued talking to him through the door. Her live stream was still running, and the comments were flying by too fast to read. But she caught glimpses. Someone help that little girl. Police need to storm the building. This man is insane. Save Sophia. She realized that nearly 1 million people were watching this unfold in real time. 1 million people who were witnessing exactly what kind of man Richard Vale really was. And suddenly, Bella knew what she had to do. She positioned her phone carefully, making sure the camera captured both Vale and Sophia clearly. Then she stepped into the office. Hello, Richard. Vale spun around, startled. In that moment of distraction, Marcus kicked in the front door. Everything happened at once. Marcus dove toward Vale, going for the gun. Carmen, despite her bound hands, threw herself sideways in her chair, knocking over a table and creating more chaos. Bella lunged for Sophia, scooping the little girl into her arms and shielding her with her body. The gun went off. For a terrifying second, Bella couldn't tell if anyone had been hit. Then she heard Marcus grunt in pain and saw him struggling with Vale for control of the weapon. Run! He shouted at her. Bella ran, carrying Sophia toward the door, her phone still streaming everything. Behind her, she could hear Marcus and Vale fighting, furniture crashing, Carmen screaming. She made it outside just as FBI agents stormed the building. Sophia was clinging to her, small arms wrapped around her neck, crying but unharmed. It's okay, Bella whispered, rocking the little girl gently. You're safe. Your daddy saved you. Agent Chen appeared beside them. Are you hurt? I don't think so. But Marcus, we've got him. He's injured but alive. Vale's in custody. Bella looked down at her phone. The live stream was still running, and the viewer count had reached 1.2 million people. The comments were a blur of celebration, relief, and fury at what they'd just witnessed. She turned the camera on herself and Sophia. This is what justice looks like, she said to her audience. Richard Vale will go to prison. The money he stole will be returned to the families he hurt. And Sofia Rivera is safe because her father never stopped believing that the right thing was worth fighting for. She ended the stream and focused entirely on the little girl in her arms. Sophia, I'm Bella. Your dad has told me so much about you. Sophia looked up at her with eyes that were exactly like Marcus's. Are you the sad lady who likes dolphins? Despite everything, Bella smiled. I'm not sad anymore. 2 hours later, Bella sat in a hospital waiting room while doctors worked on Marcus's shoulder. He'd been shot, but the bullet had gone clean through without hitting anything vital. Sophia was curled up asleep in Bella's lap, exhausted by the trauma, but safe. Carmen was being treated for her injuries, but would be fine. Richard Vale was under arrest, along with 17 other members of his network. The FBI had recovered nearly $40 million in assets, and the rest would likely be recovered during prosecution. Agent Chen approached with coffee and a tired smile. Media's calling it the social justice takedown, she said. Your live stream's been watched 12 million times. Richard Vale's the most hated man in America right now. Good, Bella said firmly. Let everyone see what happens when criminals think they're untouchable. The Bureau's going to want to debrief you both extensively, but that can wait. How are you holding up? Bella looked down at Sophia's sleeping face, then through the window toward Marcus's room, where she could see him arguing with doctors about discharge papers. I'm good, she said, and meant it. When Marcus was finally released, his arm in a sling, but otherwise intact, he found Bella and Sophia in the hospital cafeteria, sharing chocolate chip cookies and drawing pictures of dolphins. Daddy! Sophia launched herself at him, careful of his injured arm. Hey baby, you okay? Bella saved me, and she knows all about dolphins, and she says I can visit her office and see the view from the very top of the building. Marcus met Bella's eyes over his daughter's head. She said that, did she? I figured it was time Sophia saw what her daddy was really protecting. Later, when Sophia was safely with Carmen and the sun was setting over Manhattan, Marcus and Bella stood on the roof of the Kingsley building, looking out over a city that felt different now. Cleaner, somehow. More just. So what happens now? Bella asked. Now, Richard Vale goes to prison for a very long time. The FBI offers me my pick of assignments, and you go back to running your company. Is that what you want? Marcus turned to face her, and she saw something in his expression that made her heart race. What I want is to wake up every morning knowing I'm protecting people who matter. What I want is to come home every night to someone who sees the world the way I do. What I want is to give Sophia a life where justice isn't just something we hope for, it's something we make happen. That sounds like a job description. Maybe it is. Kingsley Corporation's going to need new security leadership, someone who understands both corporate fraud and street-level protection, someone who can build systems that actually protect working families instead of just protecting profits. Bella stepped closer to him. Are you asking me to hire you, Detective Rivera? I'm asking you to partner with me, Isabella Kingsley. Business partners? Among other things. She stood on her tiptoes and kissed him, soft and sure and full of promises. When they broke apart, Marcus was smiling. Sophia's going to want to keep that dolphin connection going, he said. I think I can arrange that. Maybe it's time I remembered why I wanted to study marine biology in the first place. And maybe it's time I remembered that the best way to protect people is to give them power, not just shelter. They stood together on the roof as night fell over Manhattan. Two people from different worlds who'd found something real in the middle of deception and danger. Below them, the city hummed with possibility, a place where justice could happen when ordinary people decided to make extraordinary efforts. Marcus's phone buzzed with a text from Sophia, a picture she'd drawn of 3 figures standing together, a man, a woman, and a little girl, all of them smiling, all of them safe. Bella looked at the picture and felt something settle into place. Something she'd been searching for her entire life without knowing it. Family. Purpose. Home. "Ready to change the world?" Marcus asked. "With you? I'm ready for anything."